We celebrate this feast day of Saints Peter and Paul. You know, we heard in the first reading that Peter found himself in chains. He was actually bound with double chains. And Paul at one point of his life was bound with chains. And so I've been thinking about this whole idea of what it would be like to be bound in chains and not be able to get out. And so for a while, believe it or not, I've been wanting to use, I have a good friend in the parish who's like a master magician. I've been wanting to use a straitjacket, but it just doesn't fit with the homily. So he brought me the chain set, and so that's what I'm going to try to do for you today. I did practice this a couple times in the office, and actually once the secretary had to let me out because I had a wedding that I had to be at. So the whole idea is you got chains, and who would like to help me out with this? I need someone. Can you come up and help me out? All right, so the idea, you got these padlocks. These are actually real padlocks, so don't lock them until you get them on the chain. They're actual real master locks, and these are real chains. And so the whole idea is he's going to chain me up into these chains, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the homily and see if during that time I can get out of them. So there's one. The server's got the key. You just got to push it and lock it, right? Tug on it, make sure it's locked. Okay, good. And now we'll do this other one. A little bit nervous here. That one's a little bit tight. Hang on. My wrists are actually sore from practicing this, just so you know. I sacrifice for you people. Okay, they're locked. You feel them? They're good. Can you feel these? Make sure they're locked. Just give them a little tug. Real chain, real master locks. This is a real deal, okay? So, the idea is we all got chains sometimes, and we find ourselves bound in chains. So that's what I want you to think of for the homily. Like, what are the chains in your life? You know, can you think of any chains that you have been bound by, or maybe someone that you love? Maybe there's somebody that you love to that has been bound in some kind of chain. And, you know, ultimately that's sin, but if you think about it, it could be anything. So maybe it's the chains of addiction. Maybe you know someone that is addicted to some drug, and they just have not been able to fight that. Maybe you know, maybe you or someone else you love is struggling with alcoholism, or is struggling with weed, or is struggling with cigarette smoking, or whatever addiction it may be, or maybe it's a sexual addiction. Maybe that's become your chain, you know, and your chain has become pornography and masturbation, and you find yourself wanting to break that chain and tied to it. Maybe it's an emotional illness, you know, maybe it's depression or anxiety or some other, you know, mental imbalance, or maybe it's something physical, you know, maybe it's a physical disability or an illness that you have just been plagued with. The truth is, we probably all have chains, and we probably all know somebody as well that is chained. And what's so amazing is we can't get ourselves out of them. Like, I cannot get myself out of these chains. I can't make it happen. I could sit here and tug. I could like rack my brain over it. I could bite them. You know, we can't get ourselves out of our chains, and we can't just come up to somebody else and say, "Hey, can you get me out of these chains? I don't like them. Just get me out of them, please."
I can't.
You can't do it, right? We can't get ourselves, and oftentimes other people can't get us out of chains. Who's the only one that can get us out of our chains? God, Christ, specifically Christ in the church. So if you hear in the first reading, St. Peter is locked in chains. So I'm just going to replay the first reading a little bit, okay? It's evening time. Herod the Great, he's already beheaded John. He's now going after Peter. He takes Peter. He puts double chains around his wrists and sets him up with 4 sets of 4 guards. So he's got 16 guards guarding him, okay? And then he lays Peter down, and there's 2 guards that have to sleep next to him to make sure he doesn't go anywhere. And overnight, he's there in his double chains, and an angel comes up to him and says, "Rise." And as he rises, the chains fall from his hands, and he walks away free. And he doesn't even know if this is a dream or not. So he's walking away through the guards. He's out of there. Before you know it, he's freed. And then he realizes only after that an angel had come to him and rescued him. And so often it's true for us. We can't get ourselves out of our chains. You've probably tried. You've probably tried every way you can to overcome whatever addiction it is, whatever chain it is you find yourself going through. Ultimately, we can't do it ourselves. But Christ can. And the prayer of the church can. Because what was happening in that first reading when Peter was chained up, we hear, look at this, we hear in the first reading that the church was praying fervently for him. The entire church was praying fervently for Peter. And it was because of their prayers that the angel came to him and set him free. He didn't know what was happening. He didn't know how it happened. He didn't even know what was happening. But all of a sudden, the chains dropped and they were free. Now, I want you to think about that loved one again, or maybe it's yourself, or whatever your chains are, whatever your own addiction is. And I just want you to ask God to bring it to the liturgy here, to ask Him to free you from that chains. And I guarantee you, there's going to be people that walk out of here today and say, Father, ever since that Mass, I've been freed from this. Or there's going to be someone you're praying for right now that is going to be freed from something. And it all happens as part of this great mystery. And so that's where I need the black bag. Now she's got the other key. Why don't you leave the key with the other server so I don't do anything with it? So here's the mystery, right? We ultimately don't know how it happens, but we do know that God has the grace to free us from our chains. So let's try this. Stand down here. And pull the bag up over my hands. And hold it, pull it up a little bit because I can't hold it. So the idea is we can all be freed from our chains, and sometimes it happens in mystery. Sometimes it doesn't happen as soon as we want it to. There's one. Let's see if I can get the other one. Can you pull that up above my arm again? This is the wrist I really have trouble with. And there's the other one. But the idea is, the difference between magic and miracles. In magic, there's always a trick, right? In miracles, the only trick, the only thing that happens is we come to Jesus. What we tend to do in our lives is we try to fix it. We try to break our own chains. We try to break our addictions. We try to break the habit of sin. We try to stop whatever we're doing. And people say, Father, I've tried. I've quit so many times. I've stopped so many times. I've tried to be patient so many times. We try. And it's until we go to God and in the mystery, especially here at this Eucharist, it's the prayer of the church that saved Peter from his chains. Peter didn't even know what was happening. Peter was sleeping at the time his chains were broken free. The angel came to him. He was sleeping. The angel tapped him on his shoulder. He woke up. His shackles dropped to the ground and he was freed. It's the prayer of the church that frees us from our chains. So I want you to remember that, especially as we do the general intercessions here. I just want you to hold in your heart whatever it is that you need freed from. If there's any chains in your life, if there's anything that's been holding you down, or if there's anything that's been holding a loved one down, maybe it's your child or your spouse or a friend, bring them to prayer. Bring them to the Eucharist. Because it's only through Christ, and especially in the power of this Eucharistic community and through our prayers, that we can all be freed from our chains.